we had a conversation last week, you mentioned that when you go overseas and people ask you what Tolokazi means, you want to be able to reference African women who are brewers. And I'm actually looking at just the reception area, and there's a lot of Africanness in your reception area already. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. It aligns with the way that you described your brand. What is this?
So that's the ingredients that we use. So that's malted barley, and then that's sorghum.
Okay.
So this is, like, a lot of people don't know what sorghum is or what it's like.
What is the difference between barley and sorghum?
So sorghum is an African grain,
Okay.
whereas barley is more of a European grain. So
Okay.
you find that the clear beer, as we know today, obviously started in Europe, and they use barley because that's the grain that they could grow back there. Whereas in Africa, a lot of the African beers use sorghum because sorghum is sort of like our grain. And then with the Portuguese, when they brought maize in Africa, you find that African beers are either using sorghum and maize, and in other parts of the continent, they would use millet because that's what's easily grown there.
Okay. I'm not a beer drinker. What the hell is malt? Among all of these ingredients that I'm looking at here, what is malt and where does it come in here?
So this is malt. So this is malted barley.
Oh,
Malt is just malted barley. Just we as brewers, I think every profession tries to be clever. So basically, it's like grass. It's in the grass family. So that's usually how it's grown.
so this is the fancy name for barley.
This is how it grows.
Wow.
So when you on the fields, it's actually how a barley plant. It's like
Okay.
wheat.
It looks like wheat.
Yes. So this is the barley plant.
Okay.
So what you see here is one of these.
Okay.
Once they
It
grow.
stems from there. Okay.
Yeah. And then we go through a malting process where they just make it ready for
Okay.
for brewing.
Okay. So you mentioned clear beer. So are you then saying that the difference with the ingredients sort of influences what the beer looks like?
So this is the Tolokazi tap room. So
Okay.
we are building this to become a tap room, and the plan with this is to have it as a tourist attraction where we have people coming in to actually sit and taste our various products. You can see the African map.
Yes,
So
yes.
that is, we actually used to have a celebrating Africa through beer, which is one of our top lines. And those noppies are where we put the can tops.
Yes, I can see.
Yes.
Each of those caps is from a different beer, from a different
So we can
continent.
put in a branded one. So if we go to like East Africa and you get a Tusker, we can.
Okay, so that's in preparation for when you start
Yes.
doing that.
Yes.
Oh wow, that's such a brilliant concept. Okay, so these are ciders,
Yes.
and this is a beer.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is marula flavored. I don't think in my cider drinking life I've ever come across a marula flavored one. This one is their rooibos and berry cider flavor. For those who like all things fruitful, I think I would linger more towards the marula cider one.
We'll do a
as opposed to
tasting.
the-
We'll do a
I'm gonna do a tasting.
Then
Okay.
you decide which one. Then
And
we've
then-
got the sorghum pilsner.
You know when you say that, there's this thing that people like to say on social media when somebody's being rude and they'll be like, Tula, when I'm with your dad, I want to know, because I know that Hansa is a pilsner, it's not a lager. What is the difference between a pilsner and a lager?
So they basically beer. We classify beer in terms of lagers and ales.
Okay.
That's the main classification.
Okay.
And then within lagers, we have lagers, light lagers, premium lagers, pilsners, and that's just based on the ingredients that you use. So the
Oh,
yeast
it's
that you
ingredients
use,
based.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, so it's like a family of beer, and then we classify the families based on.
Okay. And then what is the distinction with the ales then?
So the main differentiator is the yeast. So
Okay.
we've got a lager yeast and then we've got an ale strain.
Oh,
And then
okay.
from there, when we're making a pilsner, then we use pilsner malt that we don't use in a lager. We use certain hops in a pilsner that we don't use in other beers. So that's where then the differences start. So within the malts and the hops, there's different types. It's like baking. So the main ingredients are flour, eggs, and I don't bake. But yeah, the main ingredients. So depending whether you want to make a chocolate cake, then you'll add a bit of chocolate. You're going to add a carrot cake, but the main base is the same. And then the difference then becomes on what exactly what flavor do you want to get out, what colors you want, then you choose the different ingredients.
when Apiwe says that, guys, I also just want to put it out there to our readers and our followers to say that I really hope, because we are also in the beginning of the academic year, I really hope that you share this video with some of your relatives, your friends, who have uncles who have kids, who have relatives or friends who are still in high school, who are going to be pursuing tertiary careers soon, so that they can also be aware of the fact that this is also a career to explore.
Yes.
Oh, you know, one of the things that Apiwe mentioned during our interview was that the work of the brewer is very laborious. The machinery is quite intense, and there it is. It does look quite intimidating. It doesn't look like the material that if you're a girly girl, you would look at and be like, I would like to work here. But we have women working here. Tolokazi is a women-owned brand. It's also a brand that is known for empowering women in terms of prioritizing women when they are selecting the team. So, are you going to take us through the machinery, or is your team going to educate us?
So I'd like to introduce you Nxusani. So Nxusani is actually ex-vets. She's got honors in microbiology, and she used to be part of the brewing team at the Inclusive Red Butter Restaurant, and first met her 2021. Yes, and when I was looking for a trainee brewer, she sent me a CV, and she's here now. So she started with us last year. So she's trained to become a brewer, and she got a scholarship actually with the Institute of Brewing and Distilling to complete a diploma in brewing. So that's what we're working on this year, and also she'll be doing beer judging certification.
Oh,
yes. So that's all the plans for this year. So she's the one that will take us through, I think, starting off with the grandfather onto the and what we do.
Obviously, you can sign it.
Okay, hi everyone. So over here, this is where we do our small batch recipe development. So this is a 30-liter grandfather. So essentially, we do everything from boiling the water, mashing the grains to get out the sugars for fermentation.
So, before you continue,
yeah.
Grandfather is the brewery equivalent of urn.
Yes.
Normal people, it's an urn for breweries.
We also have an urn, traditional urn next door, and then this is then the grandfather as well.
And just take them through how it works.
Everything going in. All right, perfect. So here, the first thing that comes out is the water, the chiller. So this works with a heat exchange. After we boil the wort, this is where we cool it down before we put it into the fermenter. So that's the first thing that comes out of here. Alright, and all the pipe work. So the very first thing that we do with the grandfather is that after we mill the barley or sorghum that we're going to use for our beer, we add that milled grain into the grain bed. In the grandfather here. This is what it looks like.
Okay.
And then we also then pour our water.
So you guys are like in the corner here.
We also add the water into the grandfather and the grain into the grandfather. This then gets to seep and mash for about an hour or so to get those sugars that will be important for fermenting out of the grain and into the water.
Just 1 hour?
1 hour, depending on whether you're making a Pilsner or lager. Pilsner usually 90 minutes.
Okay.
All right. And then we let it sit for 1 hour. After sitting for 1 hour, we take out the grain bed. We have the grains sitting in the grain bed.
And the water has sifted out.
And the water sifts out into the grandfather.
You're learning, huh?
I am learning. Might just take up a new qualification.
It's so good. What's left here is what we call spent grain. We can either throw it out, or some people use it for animal feed on their farms as well. And then that water is what we're going to boil for another hour or 90 minutes. During that hour, we're going to add our hops. So we have the aromas, we have the bitterness, all that happens during that 1 hour boil.
Okay.
From here, after the boiling, we're then going to cool it down. After the hour,
it cools down here.
It cools down. We transfer it in the cooler, and then we transfer it into the fermenter.
Okay.
We actually currently have a beer fermenting in here at the moment.
So here it spends an hour and a half, and then when it goes to the fermenter, how long does it take for that process to be completed?
About 2 to 3 weeks, 10 days
Okay.
max. That's when we add the yeast, taking out that sugar that we took out from the grain, converting it into alcohol.
Okay. When you say 2 to 10 days or 3 to 10 days, what brings you to the decision that we want to take 5 days, we want to take 7 days, we want to take 10 days, etc.?
It's usually 10 days going up. So that is then dependent on whether you're making your ale, your lager, and what yeast you're using as well.
Okay.
And also, I think it depends on, because we also measure the gravity.
Yes.
So the gravity is the amount of sugars left. So as the yeast eats up the sugars to make alcohol and carbon dioxide, then the sugar levels drop. So we've got that's our lab section of the small brewery, where we have a few lab equipments where we check the gravity. So I just wanted to come back to the grandfather. So this is basically the whole brewery in one. So people that do home brewing, because we've got a big home brewing community in the country. So people that take brewing as a hobby, they make their own beers at home, which is allowed by law, because it's not for selling, it's for own consumption, as long as you make less than 100 liters.
Don't make your own beers at home and then start selling them.
That's why
you will get arrested and go to jail.
That's why during the pandemic, people were brewing.
I remember
when
that.
when we were all closed,
I remember
people
that.
were brewing. So this what
Everything happens in one time before we do fermentation.
Okay.
When we move on to a bigger scale, everything is separated into their own tanks, right? So where we start is water boiling. So this is where we first fill up our water tank and boil our water in preparation for the brew.
How much water do you ordinarily use?
for a liter, like smaller breweries use about 7 to 10 liters
Okay.
of water per liter of beer.
Okay.
Whereas the bigger breweries that obviously have a lot of processes in place because water is obviously with climate change and everything, they
Yeah.
go down to like 4 liters of water per liter of beer produced.
All right.
And then this is then where we add our milled grain and water. Do you wanna?
It's empty now.
Yeah, it's empty now, but this is where we add the milled grain with the water for that mashing step for that
Okay.
hour. Get up all the sugars and let it sit for an hour. And then from here, we will then transfer that liquid with the sugars into a loitering tank. Well, we use that smaller
I can see
that
it.
tank to loiter and sparge the grains. So what sparging is that we're basically rinsing off all the remainder of the sugar that is on top of the grain before we transfer the liquid into the boiling tank. So we're making sure that we have all those sugars off of the grain and having sufficient enough for fermentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is more of an industrial scale as opposed to that being somebody who brews at home.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So ask her, how does she get the grain out?
Why is that funny?
Upper body strength. See how short I am. This stool has a purpose. We climb in. Literally, we use a wooden spoon, a very big wooden spoon, and scoop that grain out. Take it out from here.
How long does it take you?
Depends when I'm alone.
Depends if Apiwe is around.
It takes a while. I usually leave it until we've transferred everything, and I'm like, okay, let's roll up the sleeves, let's dig in. If I have to climb inside as well myself to scoop out everything out of the
Well, don't drown me there.
fine, I'll be fine. But yeah.
But I think to the point where I was saying that a lot of people that enter the industry don't appreciate the laborers and the requirement in terms of time. Because I mean, when she starts, you're probably in here before 8, and then you hear the whole day till probably like 6, 7, and you can't. It's the process where you can't say at 5 I'm knocking off. I'll come back tomorrow.
You have to finish.
You have
before
once you
you-
start, you have to make sure you finish and.
As clean as you find it as well.
And we clean immediately after because it's like cooking, like a chef.
Cross-contamination here.
Cross-contamination issues, and also if you don't clean immediately, like it's like leaving dishes overnight. You wake up the following morning, there's cockroaches,
Yeah.
and so we live in a very hygienic environment where we always have to uphold because the product that we're making is obviously for human consumption. We need to make sure that you adhere to that. So it's a lot of long hours, a lot of hard work, and the idea with this setup is also to get because we are accredited as a training provider.
Oh, wow.
With the QCTO. So this is not a full-on commercial brewery. So the plan is to have the likes of Kenzani. So
Training here.
yes. So our target is about 20 learners per year.
Yeah, wow.
That we want to take through this system. They get to learn here, able to make mistakes because at least everything is still small. If this breaks, we can quickly. I mean, like, it's not expensive before they go to the big breweries where they might not be able to follow where this pipe goes or how the process works. So everything's so automated. Here, it's manual. You learn and you feel, you touch, and that's what this place is on about.
Literally on the job training.
Yes.
Okay, and those two big tanks over there?
So those are 500 liter fermenters and those are 1,000 liter fermenters. So it's just
Okay,
bigger
this is just bigger fermenters.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is 300 liter.
Okay. So by the way, we've been when we do the trials and we use these ones because it's not enough for it. So if the beer doesn't come out right.
How bad is your electricity bill?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. How bad is bad? On a scale of
Okay.
No, that's electricity is one of our biggest utility usages.
Would solar power and other forms of renewable energy be something viable for somebody who wants to do something like this?
They are obviously with the climate change and everything that's going on. There's a lot of breweries that are trying it out. I know Tolokazi and Heineken have actually a full-on solar farm that they've built, but you can't really run the full brewery off it. So even when we during the load sheddings, a lot of breweries bought backup generators. So during that time, it's just to be able to, if you have a power cut, just like 2 hours, and you are in the middle of meshing, it allows you to complete that process. So you not be enough to.
So it's quite challenging to think of it as a long-term thing.
No, because of the amount of energy that we pull. So it might just be.
Okay.
And also once you're in the fermenters, then we have temperature control. So these are on a constant monitoring of temperature, which uses a lot of electricity also. So the whole process on a day-to-day basis, you're always using a bit of electricity.
Okay. All right. Can we go to the lab?
So the likes of gravity, carbon dioxide in the beer, and everything that is important to make sure that we have a good quality product. So this is our miniature lab.
We're doing some samples.
This is basically our miniature lab where we do all those measurements. We have your microscope. You have a microscope. So this is then becomes.
So that's where we check the yeast.
Yes, yeast viability. So before we even think of adding it into the wort, we have to make sure that we have good quality so that it works as it should, as long as it should as well. Checking the quality using the microscope as well as a yeast cell count for fresh or live yeast. And then we have our measuring cylinders, we have our pipettes as well, and then thermometers, making sure that we always have the correct temperature. Temperature is very important in the brewing steps. So mashing takes place at a specific temperature, boiling takes place at a specific temperature, and then fermentation also needs to start at a specific temperature because of the different types of yeast that are sensitive to temperature as well. And then the gravity, we use a hydrometer. So this, we pour a sample of your liquid, whether it's wort or the alcohol, in a little cylinder, and then it floats in the liquid and then measures how much sugar is available in that liquid then. And then this is then basically a digital version of that. That's more of a manual. This is more of a digital. What you do is pour your liquid onto this glass slide here. You close it, and then you have a look through the looking hole, and then it has the same scale as onto in the manual. Yeah. Right there. So we have no sample, so it's sitting at 0. And that is the digital version of our, this is then called the refractometer.
Okay.
Perfect. And then we have our pH meter. pH is also very important, making sure our water quality is up to par, as well as our wort or our alcohol, depending on we're making sure that we have the correct acidity in our liquids as well.
Thanks for mentioning.
Once we've done the fermentation and the beer is ready, so we would do a packaging. So here we package, because we'll mainly do trials work. So there's like a small packaging unit using like the small bottles where you just, now it's off, but it basically will collect the beer and the bottle will fill through there. And once it's done, we then cap it over here. And what is important for me is people understanding the principles that, when you're filling in, the importance of making sure the bottles are clean and what do you clean with, how do you fill, how do you make sure you're at the right fill height, and that allows you then, if there's, complaints from trade, as a brewer, you're able to go back and say, no, but there is no way that we can have a cigarette butt in a returnable bottle, or what you find sometimes a piece of condom in a bottle, because in the breweries, the level of cleanliness that we actually put in and the processes that we have in place do not allow for such things.
Thank you.
This is the marula flavor. Tasting. 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is nice.
So,
Thank you.
So, the grain that is used as the base is sorghum.
So we still use malted barley, and then we do 30% sorghum.
I see. Wow. And a clear sorghum beer. Who knew?
Why does this surprise you?
I'm finding that sorghum as a grain is not prevalently used for clear beer.
Okay.
But I think this is testament to the fact that you can make clear beer with
Using
sorghum
sorghum.
as a grain.
So, trailblazing. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Thank you. Okay, this one.
The
Marula
winner.
wins. It still wins. Even me.
The
I
winner.
go with this one. Marula.
I don't know.
If it was
I'm
a judging
judging you for this
competition,
one.
this is the one.
Well, she's the expert. I just be judging it according to